So I initially started with verbal, then quant and data insights, but I realized it wasn't working really well for me. QA, by the time I would come to the quant section after the verbal section, I used to be very tired, and a verbal, in my opinion, requires a lot of concentration. So that is why I thought of attempting QA first, because I would do that with a fresh mind. After that, I would attempt data insights. I feel it is an extension of the quant section, so that is why I would attempt QA and data insights together. So I believe Scholarinium has a very rich set of questions, and it basically covers everything and more that you expect out of GMAT. So basically, if you go through the entire question bank, which I believe isn't possible, you cannot really go through the entire question bank, but if you do that, then you are in a very comfortable position. You've basically covered all the topics that you expect from the exam. And I believe, again, this did really help me because I knew what kind of questions I was getting into. And
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interview session with me. Today, I'm excited to have with me Aastha, who recently improved by 120 points from a 535 to a 655. Her verbal saw a very substantial improvement from a V81 to a V85. Her quant saw an improvement of 4 points from a 77 to an 81, and her data insights went from a DI72 to a DI81, which is a massive, massive improvement. Her overall journey has been full of ups and downs, like any other GMAT journeys. It's a marathon at the end of the day. You'll have your highs, you'll have your lows, but she's finally ended up on the right side of the journey. And I'm glad that she's found out some time to do this little session with us so that you, the GMAT aspirants, can maybe take some learnings from her journey and benefit out of it. So thank you so much, Aastha, for doing this. How are you?
hi, thank you first of all for this opportunity. And yes, I'm doing great right now. I feel after the GMAT, I'm just doing a lot better now. So yeah, and looking forward
Yeah,
to applying to these schools.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Of course, I think GMAT takes a lot out of one's life, right? And once that gets out of the way, of course, in a positive way, like for you, it of course feels relieving, right? And I'm sure you must be going through that little phase right now. So, Asta, as I said, we'll be discussing your journey, we'll be decoding things that worked for you, the mistakes you made, the learnings from those mistakes, and everything that sums up your journey in the next few minutes, right? So, let's delve deeper into your journey and start with your verbal improvement. Okay. So, when you're
Sure.
starting at a
So I'll
V81, yeah, sure, please tell me.
yeah. Maybe you can ask your question and then I'll proceed with my answers.
Yeah, sure. So, Asa, you were starting at a V81, right? Which I think most non-native Indian speakers would take as a baseline verbal score with both hands, right? A V81 indicates you had decent fundamentals, right? But of course, there was scope for improvement to reach your final target score, and you finally achieved a V85. What were your initial challenges with the verbal section that you had identified?
Sure. So I'll start with the RC section and then I'll maybe move to CR.
Yeah, yeah, feel
Um,
free.
so basically, whenever I used to read a passage, I would try to overanalyze it. I would try to maybe read in between the lines too much, try to come up with way too many links between the previous passage and previous paragraph and the current paragraph. I feel that consumed a lot of my time while reading the passage. So I would take maybe upwards of 4.5 minutes to just go through the passage. And then I would use the same strategy while attempting the MCQs. So I would end up over analyzing the MCQ options as well. And because of that, my RC accuracy in general was very low. However, when I look at my CR performance, I feel this strategy of analyzing the passage did help me in CR, because I feel in CR you really have to come up with a lot of logical connections and then maybe think of an answer before you look at the options. So I feel this strategy did help me in CR. And apart from that, the pre-thinking strategies that I learned over here, and also the strategy to identify the conclusion. Because at the end of the day, CR just comes down to identifying the main conclusion, and then the main conclusion is essentially attacked in the question. So that did help me a lot. And I also remember coming across an ABC test to basically differentiate between the main conclusion and other conclusions. So yeah, that was specifically very helpful for me. However, as far as RC is concerned, I believe I kind of took a step back wherein I would take the RC passages more on its face value. I would try to save time while reading it. I would definitely make a few notes. So I would make a few notes, but I would take it more on its literal sense. And then I applied the same strategy while I was even solving questions. I would typically use the elimination process to arrive at the final answer. So yeah, these were essentially the main strategies that I used while attempting the verbal section. I think you're on mute.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, so we'll just
No
dive a
worries.
little deeper into these strategies, okay, to give better understanding to the listeners right now. Uh, because you said you want to start with RC, let's start with RC. Okay, some major problems that people face. Okay, because I deal with students every day, so I can collate their queries for you, right? One major query is most students face issues with a specific theme of passage, right? For some people, it may be humanities. For some, it could be science based on the background an individual comes from, right? When I'm sure you also would have your own, not so likable themes. What was your strategy for those kind of passages? How would you tackle those?
Sure. So I mainly come from a science background, so I was very easy with science passages, but then I had a really tough time interpreting history passages. But then I believe the same strategy of just looking at it literally not over analyzing the passages. And then also, in my experience, GMAT does not test you on any prior knowledge on that topic. You just have to read it, make notes, understand that you're able to come with coherent linkages, but then also you're not reading too much in between the lines. So these were basically my strategies: note taking initially, then I mean, not diving too much into each line, and again,
Yeah,
taking the MCQs also at the face value.
understood. I think this is something that I also uh, truly believe in. That you don't necessarily need to marry the passage in the first read. I think that is a mistake that most students make, where they try to understand the passage 100% when they're reading it, which is why they keep on rereading. That's where they lose a lot of time. So what you're trying to say is it's okay if you don't understand the complete passage in one go, right? But
Correct.
not spending
Yes.
a lot of time there, trying to understand things on its face value, and then moving to answer choice analysis is the strategy that worked for you.
And one more thing that I would like to talk about is understanding the tone of the passage, because I
Mhm.
remember coming across a very difficult passage, but I was able to solve it only by understanding its tone. So there were a lot of options which were very extreme, but then there was like just one option which was neutral, and that was exactly the tone of the passage. It was neutral, it wasn't taking any sides. And that is how I was able to solve that passage. So yeah, in my opinion, understanding the tone and then the ability to segregate between facts and the writer's opinion is also very important. So the moment you're able to figure out what is specifically the author is trying to say, that also does help you a lot while you're looking at the MCQs. So yeah.
Understood. Understood. So let's discuss a bit of CR. Just before the call, I was talking with you about how you improved your hard accuracy on CR questions from a mere 50% to high 80%, right? Which shows how the pre-thinking approach was working for you. For the listeners right now listening to us, if you could just explain what exactly is pre-thinking and how does it help? Because initially, when you're going through this, when you're learning this skill, it may seem to be a little time consuming, but by the time you master it, you actually start reaping rewards for investing that time initially. So just help on what exactly pre-thinking does and how does this save your time?
Sure. So I'll talk a bit about the pre-thinking approach that I followed while solving these questions. So step one for me was to find out what is a premise, what is an opinion, and what is a conclusion. So this was my step one while I was practicing CR questions in an untimed environment. So I would always try to find out the conclusion, and then I would apply the ABC test to differentiate between multiple conclusions that I could find and then arrive at the main conclusion. This would be step one. And then if the question was a strengthened question, I would try to look for ways to strengthen that conclusion. And at times, my thought process, even though I was trying to strengthen it, but it was nowhere close to the options. But as I practiced progressively, I saw that maybe again it wasn't 100% there, but I mean I was very close to the actual option, and I was easily able to eliminate the option based on my pre-thought answer. So this was the approach that I followed. Um, Essentially while solving all easy, medium, and hard CR questions. But I feel when I got a good questions is when my hard question accuracy also started improving. So I believe it is important to first target medium questions, get some 80% plus accuracy on those questions, and then move to hard questions. Because I remember initially I used to get really worked up, and I would practice a lot of questions in a timed environment. So I would try getting maybe a 70% accuracy on hard questions in a timed environment, just 2 minutes per question. But that never really worked out for me. So that is when I basically took a step back, worked on medium questions, increased my accuracy there, and then moved to um, hard questions. And I'm pretty sure you would remember whenever we would get on calls to discuss my progress, I was always very high on time. I mean, I was always in the red area. But then, yeah, that also progressively got. This was basically my entire strategy while going through CR questions.
Understood. Understood. This helps. I'm sure people would benefit from this. Let's quickly move to data insights, Asta, because data insights saw a huge jump of 9 points, DI72 to DI81. Uh, so there are two major challenges people face. One, there are time issues because it's very difficult to finish all 20 questions within 45 minutes there, right? So I would like your insights on the time management strategy on the DI section. And second, not that great quality of questions and amount of questions on the internet. So I would like to understand, how did eGMAT help you with experiencing good quality questions in good quantity? So if you can share your insights on these two parts of data insights.
So the data insight section specifically is a very forgiving section. So you don't really have to aim for 100%. I mean, you have to attempt all the questions, but if you're taking some time, you can maybe just quickly skip over that question. And this is basically the strategy that I had followed all throughout my practice sessions. I would skip over MSR sets because that would give me a lot of time for other questions. And I mean, I'm just essentially skipping over 3 questions, and then I'm getting a lot of time. Because MSR, like there is a bit of a passage that you have to read and comprehend. So it would take me somewhere around 9 minutes, 8 to 9 minutes to go over the entire set. But then I was simply by skipping through the questions, I was just adding 9 minutes to my entire time bucket. So this was one strategy that I used when it came to basically managing time. Apart from that, I believe practice is the answer to time management. And again, I would practice a lot of questions from your data bank, from the data bank that eGMAT provided, because again, like you mentioned, there weren't a lot of good questions over the internet. And when I tried looking for explanations, I would often come across wrong answers. And I mean, incorrect approaches. So I believe the question bank, along with the right approach to solve questions, did help me a lot. And funnily enough, I did end up getting 2 MSR sets in the actual exam. I skipped through one, but then that gave me a lot of time for the second set. And then I had a lot of time in the data insight section overall. So I maybe had roughly 6 minutes when I was done with the entire section. I went back to the MSR set and I solved it. So I feel the strategy of skipping questions that you're not good with did help me a lot. And I feel I spent less than 1 minute on questions that I was dicey about. I kept them for the end and then I solved them.
Yeah,
So
it's a
this
very underrated
essentially was
feature
my
of the test.
app.
And
Yeah,
not many people leverage it, but it's there for you to leverage.
correct. Yes.
Mm.
And also one more aspect that kind of helped me, and I mean, it is a bit gimmicky, but I realized that MSR options follow a fixed pattern. So while skipping, I would make a educated guess. I wouldn't blindly skip through the question. I would try to make an educated guess in maybe under 40 seconds. Or there are at times there are questions which are just from one section. So MSR generally has 3-4 tabs, but you're able to solve one question just by looking at one tab. So you should try to do those questions while you're attempting the entire paper, while you're in the flow of attempting the exam, and then come back to questions that maybe require more time or more patience. So,
Understood.
yeah.
Understood. That's again very insightful. And uh, when we talk about the quality of questions, data insights questions, especially on Scholarinium, what's your take on those?
So I believe Scholarinium has a very rich set of questions, and it basically covers everything and more that you expect out of GMAT. So basically, if you go through the entire question bank, which I believe isn't possible, you cannot really go through the entire question bank. But if you do that, then you are in a very comfortable position. You've basically covered all the topics that you expect from the exam. And I believe, again, this did really help me because I knew what kind of questions I was getting into. And I already knew what I was supposed to expect from an MSR set, or maybe from a graphical question or a table analysis question. So yeah, if you do it, you basically know and are well prepared of what is coming ahead. And yeah.
Understood. And now if we discuss about Quant, right? You were at a Q77, improved to a Q81. Uh, what were the initial challenges that you recognized during your initial days, and how did the course help you fix those?
Sure. So I essentially come from a mathematics background. I had statistics as my college major, but then I believe up till college we would just solve answers using a very long method because we would get 3 hours, and then maybe we would get 5 to 6 questions, and we had to come up with very elaborate answers. So this was exactly how I would solve an eGMAT question as well. I would try writing all steps. I would doing it the traditional way. But then this clearly did not work for me in GMAT. And I remember struggling a lot when I took the first mock. I maybe wasn't very unaware about the concepts, but the fact that I did not know how to approach those questions did cost me a lot of time. And then I had to skip through a lot of questions towards the end in my very first mock. So I believe, yes, the targeted approach and the video solutions that we get for each question, wherein we're basically dissecting the entire approach, and then I know where I was going wrong, which step was I doing incorrectly. So, and then correcting it and then doing that for multiple questions together did help me. Um, and I also feel my prep in quant and so learning this approach and the ability to solve questions faster did help me a lot with data insights as well. So I believe data insights is a good mix of CR questions from the verbal section and then QA questions from the quant section. So the fact that I struggled a lot with quant questions was also affecting my data insight section. Learning how to solve quant helped me with the TI section as well. So yeah, it did benefit two of the three sections.
Hmm, understood. Uh, if we talk about the mock journey because that's a different journey altogether. Many people who do well on the sectional part of things, they find it difficult to put all their learnings in those 2.5 hours on that particular mock, right? And I'm sure you had your own share of challenges. What were those challenges and how were you trying to continue to improve on your previous mock score?
Sure. So number one challenge for me was taking a 2+hour long exam because I haven't done this in a really long time, and then sitting for 2 hours and the ability to concentrate for 2 hours did was a really big challenge for me. But then I would try to have 2+hour practice sessions as well. So I would try to have 3-hour sessions while I was practicing, and that did help me a lot while I was taking the mock. So that was the first strategy. And apart from that, I also tried coming up with the most suitable pattern of attempting the sections. So I initially started with verbal, then quant and data insights, but I realized it wasn't working really well for me. QA, by the time I would come to the quant section after the verbal section, I used to be very tired, and a verbal, in my opinion, requires a lot of concentration. So that is why I thought of attempting QA first, because I would do that with a fresh mind. After that, I would attempt data insights. I feel it is an extension of the quant section, so that is why I would attempt QA and data insights together. I took the 10-minute break and then I would attempt the verbal section with a fresh mind. And also, since I was attempting it towards the very end, I did not overanalyze the options. So I was pretty much done with like the exam when I was after sitting like through these two long sections, and then towards the end I wouldn't try to over analyze and read in between the lines, and I feel that worked like magic for me because verbal did actually form a really big chunk of my actual score. So yeah, I feel this was the strategy that I used while attempting the mock. And apart from that, I also realized that quant is a very competitive section, and you have to like think on your feet all the time, and you have to think, and you have to be very quick with calculations. So after taking the mock is when I had the realization that I really need to increase my QA speed. And apart from that, yeah, I feel these were essentially the three main learnings from attempting the mock. Apart from that, I also believe the GMAT mocks that I took, um, the score that I would get wasn't very realistic. I feel it was a bit inflated, or I mean, inflated by a good margin. However, the eGMAT mocks that I took were very realistic. So my score in the actual exam was very close to the average score that I got in eGMAT mocks. And I feel and again, that is one reason why I would recommend the eGMAT mock to everybody. I feel you will get a more realistic idea of your preparation, and also the analysis of mocks was really helpful for me. So yeah, this was basically uh, my experience.
All right, Asa, I think you very candidly shared all the strategies that helped you with us here, and I'm really grateful for that. We're coming towards the end of the session. Any last minute tips that you would want to share?
Mm, I believe practice, and again, I feel it's very mundane. They've probably heard this from everybody, but practice does make the paper very easy. And if you attempt a lot of mocks and then you try to come up with maybe a section strategy, you don't like the chances of coming across surprises in the actual exam is very less. And again, exam pressure is very real. So maybe the score that you get in the actual exam might be a little less than actually going to be very close. So if you attempt multiple mock exams, your average score is going to be very close to your actual GMAT score. So yeah, my advice would be to practice a lot and then take a lot of mocks.
Understood. Thank you so much for doing this, Astha. I hope everybody who's watched the video till the end has gained a lot of insights, and your journey helps those other students excel in their own respective journeys as well. So on behalf of eGMAT and myself, we wish you all the best for your next steps, for your applications. Keep us posted, and we are cheering from here for you.
Thanks a ton, and thanks for having me.
Thank you.